Since its founding in 1966, Oaklands Presbyterian Church has always rooted its ministry in service to others.
It is our call as a congregation to serve as a witness to God's love both within the walls of the church and in the greater community.
Now, even as COVID-19 pandemic ravages our world, we continue to witness the pattern of systemic racism in our country.
We mourn.
We mourn.
We mourn.
We mourn.
We mourn.
We mourn.
We mourn for Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and far too many before them who were senselessly and hatefully murdered.
We mourn for their families and friends who lost their loved ones needlessly.
We mourn for those in our community who are forced to witness such events over and over with little hope for meaningful change.
We mourn for the parents of all black and brown children who must have the talk about how their own skin color puts them in danger. We mourn for those overcome with emotion and those who cannot fathom getting out of bed to face the day. We mourn for our country and the ways in which we have failed ourselves and failed our neighbors.
While this is a season of mourning, it is our responsibility as a church, as a community, to speak truth to power.
People of color in our communities are being killed by our society.
It is a society which has woven a pattern of systemic racism and structural violence that has flourished in this country.
Protecting an unjust status quo.
We have continually failed to meaningfully confront the injustices that have plagued our country since its conception. The church is not exempt from this failure.
Oaklands Presbyterian Church will not be complicit in nor tolerate the weaponization of Scripture to condemn any of God's people.
Racism, discrimination, and hate are unacceptable in any form and are misaligned with the teachings of Jesus.
The responsibility to speak out against those who wish to cause harm is embedded in who we are as believers, as a church, and in our denomination.
The Behar Confession, which was written in response to apartheid and adopted by the Presbyterian Church USA, states,
"We believe that church, as a possession of God, must stand where the Lord stands, namely against injustice and with the wronged. That in following Christ, the church must witness against all the powerful and privileged who selfishly seek their own interest and thus control and harm others.
We are called to do justice, to love mercy, to walk humbly with our God.
We are called to love God and our neighbors unconditionally. To do so means to speak out when injustice is present and God's people are hurting.
Oaklands Presbyterian Church will not remain silent.
Will not remain silent.
Will not remain silent.
Oaklands Presbyterian Church will not remain silent.
We will continue to address the injustices within our own faith community.
We will cry out until the threads of hatred that were woven so long ago in this country unravel to reveal the people God intended for us to be, so that the light and love of God is emulated by all whom we encounter.